Hello and welcome. Can you believe it? I'm actually a minute early. That's like unheard of. So maybe I'll just let people come in when I normally get here 12, 12:01, 12:02, 12:03, something like that. We'll just give people a little bit of time to come in. But if you are joining me, welcome to Connecting to Your Intuition, why your intuition is your secret power to personal healing and growth. And if we haven't met, I'm Mary. I'm from Rivers Journey Wellness. I am a holistic therapist for many, many years, over 28 years. And I started incorporating energy healing, energy psychology, Reiki, mindfulness, meditation, nature practices into my practice about 10, 12 years ago. And that has just, I think, been the, I don't know, cherry on the top, I guess, for healing. And I feel like it just accelerates everybody's personal growth when we combine those together. If you have been with me this whole time, or if you are a current client, welcome. Thank you so much for supporting my channel, and thank you so much for being along for the ride. I appreciate that you support me in all that I do. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about connecting to our intuition. I'm going to give you 3 common blocks, call them roadblocks, to your intuition, and some tips of how to heal some of that and really be able to increase your ability to connect and trust your intuition. After I give you just a little bit of a rundown, we're going to do some Reiki. We're going to focus mainly on the third eye, cleansing and clearing the third eye chakra. But depending on what we need to do, I might be doing, other cleansing and clearings, other chakras, or just continuing with the Reiki. So this to me is one of those topics where I could come back to over and over and over again. And just when you have like the basic foundation, I feel like you can kind of expand upon it. But for me, I feel like my intuition continues to grow and develop, deepen, become more meaningful. The more that I actually pay attention to it, the more that I put that energy and that effort into recognizing what is intuition, what is my intuitive knowing. So there's so much that I could probably say about this that's going to take us well into the time that or beyond the time that I want to spend doing this. So I just wanted to focus on these 3 blocks and then these 3 things that'll help support that healing and that growth. So, and if you ever have questions or comments, you're free to leave them in the chat. You can always come back if you catch it on the replay. I'd love to hear feedback. So if you have any feedback, that would be fabulous. If you haven't liked and subscribed to my channel, I would appreciate that too. I'm still the little channel that could. I'm still trying to grow. So it's one thing that you can do to help us out. All right, so I have some notes for myself, and I'm going to just pull them up. So this, I feel like, is a really curious time. And obviously, if you come back and listen to this on the replay, you're going to be like, well, it's a different time altogether. But this is a time of accelerated growth, accelerated evolution, whatever we want to call it. And we're really being called to trust our inner wisdom, trust our intuition. So I have a train out over a mile away from my house, but we can still hear it. But I love that was like the emphasis. That was the exclamation point, I think, about pay attention to your intuition, trust your intuition. I don't know if my mic picks it up, but it's always interesting to me, that timing of when the train comes through. But we want to be able to trust our inner wisdom, trust our intuition so that we can grow. Obviously, that's a lifelong challenge, but we want to really step into that brave, that bold, or maybe braver, bolder us. We want to transform into being a leader of ourselves. We want to feel like we have a really strong inner compass along our personal path. And it just seems like message after message after message has been coming through that, like, this is the time for us to do that. So when we anchor in our intuition, it benefits us because we're going to have the courage. We're going to feel a little bit more brave, a little bit more bold to take those leaps, to trust that not only there's something for us at that next level, but that growth is going to happen and it's going to unfold in ways that are more beautiful than we could ever imagine. Our imagination sort of limits the possibilities, but possibilities are limitless when it comes to the universe. So when we can easily connect to our intuition, when we can trust our intuition, we really have this power, this power to cultivate not only our inner peace, power to make choices that feel aligned, feel authentic and genuine for ourselves, but also we're able to tune out anything from the external world that's creating heaviness, creating a depletion or stagnation of our energy. And that is huge because then we're a little bit more sovereign with our energy. So the 3 blocks that I'm going to talk about today really pertain to dysfunctional and toxic relationships, but we can see them in other areas as well. But these 3 common blocks tend to quiet our intuition or disconnect us from our own intuition. And so I want to give you there are 3 basic ones, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of information about how you can support that. So the first one I have on my list is gaslighting and doubt creation. I'm sure you all heard of gaslighting. It's something that probably is talked about more than it ever has been. And we see it on the news literally every day. So pretty sure if you haven't had that experience within relationships, your personal relationships, you're completely aware of what gaslighting is because, again, we see it. So what does that mean, though? So maybe you've heard it, but you're not sure what that means. So it's when somebody they repeatedly either dismiss or negate or twist your perception, twist reality. And what happens when that's something that occurs over and over and over again is that we begin to start to question ourselves, our inner knowing. And coming from toxic or dysfunctional relationships, even something like a domestic violence relationship, there is something, it's DARVO, it's an abbreviation, we abbreviate everything, but DARVO, deny, attack, and reverse the order of victim and offender. This is something that we often see in that gaslighting relationship. It's a tactic that's used to shut you down. It's a tactic used to confuse you. It's a tactic that gets you backpedaling and gets you put on the defensive. And it works. We tend to shut down. We tend to get very confused and aren't really sure what to say next. When that happens, we're negating our inner knowing, right? We're negating what we think is actually true. And over time, that erodes our self-trust. It makes it harder for us to connect to our intuition. It makes us harder to want to take action on our intuition, especially if it's been met with some negativity or hostility. So this is one of them that's devastating to maintaining the integrity of our intuitive knowing. So the next one that I have is over-attunement to other people's needs. So we're really focused on somebody else. So we see this in unhealthy relationship dynamics, typically with enabling a codependency or people pleasing. So you learn to prioritize another person's needs over yours. So you're very mindful of another person's mood or desire. You're seeking maybe their approval or trying to manage the best you can the situation or the actual person and their energy because you know there could be some negative consequences for you, possibly for them as well, if they dysregulate and things kind of blow up, right? And so if we have this focus on the external, on other people, we're tuning into them, we're tuning into their needs, which in theory is okay, but we really need to be focused in on what our needs are, what our inner voice is saying. It sort of puts our needs in the back seat, or it makes our inner voice a little less important, seemingly, than the other person's needs in that moment. So that can be a big problem. And the third one, and these all kind of blend together. So I tried to break them out just a little bit, but just so you know, they all kind of blend together. So the third common block is that our our system our system gets overloaded, overwhelmed by fear, by doubt, by anxiety. So things can trigger us if we're walking on eggshells, or we're constantly in survival mode, or we're just a ball of stress, or we don't know how to manage our anxiety. Our body stays in that fight, flight, or freeze response mode, and we can't tap into our intuition when we're in that state. Intuition thrives, it does best when we're calm, when we're present with ourselves, when we're present with our surroundings, and we can sort of block out what else is happening outside of us. That way, we're able to listen to the whispers, I call it, of intuition. I'm sure other people do too, but the whispers of intuition. And when we're in fight, flight, or freeze, we can't do that. We can't do that. And so, if we're in this chronic state of stress where we are overloaded, and again, we sort of see that every day, that we're just flooded with information, whether it's through social media or the news or reports from the government. We just get so overwhelmed, and we're not sure, like, where do I put my attention? What needs to, what fire needs to be put out first? And oftentimes when that happens, we sort of just collapse. Then I can't make any choices. I don't want to do anything. I don't feel like active in my life. I'm definitely not present for myself and what I'm needing. So when everything sort of collapses in, that's when we think that that's when we can tell that the system is overloaded, and you're not going to be able to tap into your intuition. So no matter to what degree you fall with those three common blocks, you can always begin to listen to your intuition, begin trusting or return to trusting your intuition again. And I'm just going to give three basic ways of doing this. There's lots of different ways. I'm just going to start where it's simple and manageable, and anybody can do it. So the first one is start to reconnect to your body's signals. So everything feels jarring. Everything feels like it needs our attention. That's not exactly what I mean. What I mean is we have to be able to notice how the body reacts to different situations. So you might notice sensations in your body, tightness, warmth, tingling. Might feel like there's some tension, or there might feel some fluidity. And we need to be aware of what those bodily reactions, what those bodily sensations are actually telling us. So we need to be able to discern, am I in fight, flight, or freeze? Or am I actually in the opposite is rest and digest? Am I actually calm and centered? So we want to have a practice of, if you've never done this before, this is the initial practice I teach everybody, is to kind of take a moment and do a quick body scan to check in with your body and to notice where there's any tension or discomfort. For some people, I encourage them to close their eyes so they can tune out everything else that's in, their immediate environment. But if that feels stressful, you don't have to do that. You can just soften your gaze just a point that's beyond where you are, and just go from head to toe, just checking in and seeing, how everything feels. Do I have a headache? Is my jaw hurting because it's been clenched this whole time? Does my throat feel raspy? What's going on with my breath? Am I breathing just from up here in shallow breaths? Am I breathing from my diaphragm? Does something feel tight? Do I have an ache or a pain? We just want to check in and notice what's going on in our body. It brings us out of wherever our mind is, future or past, and it brings us back to the present. If it feels like it's hard for you to connect to your body, if it feels almost like your body is foreign to you, you may want to practice with some gentle touch. So you can place one hand on or over the heart chakra and one over the solar plexus or sacral chakra. So you can either be a little bit above the belly button or a little bit below the belly button. And that just helps us connect to the body. We can feel the softness, we can feel the temperature, we can feel the rise and fall of our breath. And so we're able to bring our attention back to our body a little bit easier. We want to notice what we're feeling in those moments, obviously, so we can trust our intuition. But if we have had our we've had our attention focused too long on somebody else or external things, we want to practice, what does it feel like to be in my body? And I'm going to have you practice with the positive emotions. What does it feel like for my body when I'm excited, when I'm happy, when I'm relaxed, when I'm joyous, when I'm experiencing bliss? So you can imagine, other times in your life, if you're not currently feeling that way now, other times in your life that you felt that, and notice, how does that feel in the body? It will feel different than when there's tension or discomfort. You'll be able to remember and recall, well, this is what my body feels like when it's relaxed, or this is what my body feels like when it was experiencing joy, right? So we want to practice what that feels like so then we notice it later on. Sometimes it can help to journal down. If you're trying to relearn the language of your body, it might be helpful to have notes for yourself. So then you can sort of create your own little compass, your own little key for, what does my body mean? What is my body telling me? And hopefully you'll listen to your body. The other thing, if you're struggling to get out of your mind and to return to your body, if it feels unsafe to return to your body, then you may have some unresolved, either emotional, physical, spiritual, sexual trauma. And so you may want to consider meeting with a trauma-informed therapist, somebody that's able to support your healing process. In the past, I've said, if you can find a coach that is trauma informed, that's fine as well. But I have to admit, I've been in the field for 27, 28 years, and there are still some cases of individuals experiencing complex trauma that I need to refer out, that I need to find them an expert in whatever they're struggling with, because I can't support them. So if I have this breadth of experience and I'm saying I need to recognize what my limitations are, I don't want you to go to maybe somebody that's taken 5 hours in something, or, oh, I read a book, or, I know from my own personal experience. Even though people are intended, oftentimes they can create a little bit more stress and struggle for others. So that's just my public service announcement. Take it or leave it, but I just wanted to put that out there. So the second way that we can break through those blocks, start to reconnect or originally connect to our intuition, is to practice having that safe alone time, taking time to go within, finding solitude. So this can be in silence, this can be in meditation, this can be just pondering a simple question for yourself. What does it feel? What feels true for me right now in this moment? So some people feel very uncomfortable going into that place of meditation in their home, or they don't like that stillness. It doesn't feel comfortable. So you can even do this walking in nature. You don't have to be bound and restricted to stay just in one little space. But what feels true for me right now? And another question that you can ask is, what do I know to be true about whatever the experience is or whatever the situation is? When we start to ask those questions and receive those answers, this helps our intuition, our inner voice, to grow stronger without the interference of other people's opinions. And I'm going to probably say that a bunch of times with this one and the next one. But we don't we don't want to have this quiet time or this solitude or inner silence, inner stillness, whatever you want to call it. We don't want anyone else's approval, observations, opinions in those quiet moments. We want to be focused on ourselves. And if you notice that you start to feel guilty about having this quiet time to yourself, you may want to question that. Why is it? Why do I struggle with this? Is there something that doesn't feel safe for me? And again, this can be a trauma response for us. So if it's feels like a too much of a struggle to reconnect to stillness, to quiet, again, think about talking to somebody about that. But also with this practicing that safe, that solitude, alone time, quiet time. Um, if you haven't connected to your intuition in a really long time, then I want you to start the practice of getting reacquainted with yourself, starting to realize, what are my needs? How do I feel? What are my values? The more that we know about ourselves, how do I think about things? How do I feel about things? The more information we have, the more it sort of informs who we are, as separate from what others believe and what we've adopted, or how we've adopted their belief to be ours. So this can again be done through just thinking about it, just pondering, but this also is a really good journal exercise, to write out, like, what are my needs? What are my values? How do I think about things? Or how do I, taking one subject, one question, and kind of breaking it down. I worked in substance abuse for the first 12 years of my career, and oftentimes it didn't matter if it was a man or a woman that I was working with, they had learned to shut down their intuition. They had completely negated it and didn't know how to reconnect to it. And oftentimes when I'd ask them about, like, what are your needs? They wouldn't know. What do you like to do? I don't know. So taking that time, it may seem sort of silly, but it is a good practice to reacquaint yourself, reintroduce yourself to yourself. And who you were back then, whenever that time was, may not be who you are now. Sometimes our needs, our interests, our thoughts change. Our values sort of stay pretty similar. They're usually what's at our core, but sometimes those can shift as well. So it's important to know, I'm going to take this safe time by myself, this stillness, this quiet, this solitude, and I'm going to explore my inner world. So my third one is kind of just building on all of this. So we're going to want to build trust through gentle action. So again, oftentimes when people are like, I don't even know what I want, or I don't know what I need, I tell them, take one really small question and notice that intuitive nudge and try to follow it throughout the day. So you can maybe have an inkling to, like, hey, I should pick up the phone and call a friend, or maybe I needed to text somebody, or maybe it's even a meal, picking out a meal. Sometimes we're not sure, we're not waiting for the other person to make that decision. And so, notice what little nudges you get through the day and kind of stick with that. The other thing that I do on a daily basis, it seems like, is intuitively picking out my outfit, which seems silly. We all pick out our outfits every day, obviously. But I try to put a little intention into that. Thinking about my day, what is going to provide me with the most comfort, but what is aligned with the energy that I'm not only feeling, but the energy that I want to express. How do I want to put myself out into the world? Sometimes if I'm working on a particular thing, I might even pair it with a color. So if I'm working on a particular chakra, maybe I'll wear the color of the chakra. So you can kind of tap into your intuition that way. And you want to go with whatever pops in first. You don't want to get into the practice. You probably, if you are struggling with this, probably have a practice of second guessing, overthinking, minimizing. So we just want to take a step back from that. And then once you've made that decision and stuck with it, check in later with yourself. How did that go? Would I do that again? Why or why not? it's good to sort of analyze and unpack all that has happened. And then every time we act on our inner guidance, that intuition, and it feels good or it feels right, it feels aligned, we start to rebuild that trust within ourselves, or we begin to build that trust within ourselves. And so it makes it a little bit easier for us to be aware of our intuitive knowing and then follow through with our intuitive knowing. It's kind of like just strengthening that intuitive muscle. So those are my 3 common blocks, 3 ways that you can build back the intuition if you feel like it's faltered in any way. And remember, this is always general tips. There might be some specific things that are just for you that you could work again with somebody one-on-one. If you do feel like you'd like to work with me, always reach out, let me know, and I can talk to you about how we can work together. But this is because it's for our healing and our growth. Don't beat yourself up if you haven't trusted your intuition, or if you notice times in the past that kind of bit you. It's not about judgment and criticism. It's about just gathering that data and making different choices for ourselves from now and into the future. So this is just an opportunity for us to get a little bit more clear on what feels right for you. It's going to be different person to person, but we want to bring that alignment back to yourself. So you could even ask yourself, what did I learn about my inner wisdom today, or from my intuition for today, or from a particular experience? You can think about something from the past where maybe you had an intuitive nudge, intuitive knowing, and you didn't follow through. And so you can reflect on like, what happened when I didn't? What happened when I didn't follow through with my intuition? Your intuition will never lead you down the wrong path. Other people may not appreciate it if you're if you're creating choice for yourself that's different from what they want, but we can't control that. So then the thing that I think is really important, a little bit of a nugget to take away, is that when we claim our intuition, when we're aware of it and we value it, and we're in a practice of tapping in, checking in, honoring it, witnessing it, whatever you want to call it, and then following through with whatever our intuitive nudges, even if people don't understand it around us, that is going to move you into reclaiming your personal power. And we've been working all summer with the Soul Journey membership on reclaiming our personal power. I have my little my little reminder over here, Panther Spirit, for reclaiming our personal power. But this is really important. When I was talking at the beginning about our personal evolution, and our evolution is happening very quickly right now, we need to honor our inner knowing as our wisdom, as our inner compass. That is one way that we can live very authentically, very genuinely, and feel very satisfied, feel happy with our life. Wouldn't that be amazing? We're no longer deferring to other people. We're making those choices and those decisions for ourselves, and we feel good about the choices and the decisions that we've made. So hopefully this was helpful. We're going to do a little bit of Reiki. If you have questions, you can always put it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll do a little bit of Reiki, like I said. And then I do have some affirmations. If anybody wants any affirmations, if they want to keep working with that, you can reach out, let me know, and I can send that. So if you're not familiar with Reiki, there's nothing that you have to do to prepare yourself or anything like that. You just have to be open to receiving, open to whatever comes through you or for you. And I do say, if you want to set an intention, especially around something like this, that I'm going to practice tapping into my intuition, practice understanding or knowing what my intuitive nudges are, practice following through on whatever intuitive nudge I've received. You can always set an intention around that. I'm learning to trust my body again. I'm learning to trust my intuition. I'm learning to trust my inner compass, whatever you want. So I am going to start with just a little bit of sage. I've been having trouble with this lighter. I know it has lighter fluid still in it, but sometimes it doesn't want to light, which I think is really curious. And that was giant flame. So that one works. So I'm just going to start us off by just cleansing and clearing anything that hasn't been serving us. Sending our smoke messages up to our guides and our guardians, letting them know that we're asking for their support, their guidance. If it feels comfortable for you, if it feels safe, you're welcome to close your eyes. You don't have to see me to receive the Reiki. So if you want to lay down, that's fine as well. Whatever feels comfortable. There really isn't a right or wrong. But I'm just going to take a moment to call in your Reiki guides. If you know it or not, you have a Reiki guide, your spirit guide, any animal allies. I'm going to call in Panther Spirit because we've been working with her medicine. I'm going to call in any of your ancestors who are here to support you. Support relearning how to trust your intuitive knowing. Any ascended masters for your highest good. Any archangels or goddesses that can support you. I'm going to go ahead and just start sending Reiki. And I said earlier we are going to do a lot the clearing of the third eye, Ajna chakra. This third eye is clear. Not only can you recognize intuitive knowing, you can receive intuitive knowing in a stronger, more dynamic way, or at least that's been my experience. And intuition, I probably should have mentioned this. Intuition, you might feel it as a physical sensation. You might actually hear a voice. You might all of a sudden have a thought. There's all sorts of ways that our intuitive knowing comes through. Everybody's a little bit different. And sometimes, if my normal one is a physical sensation, but all of a sudden I smell a smell that reminds me of something. Maybe it's a warning or maybe it's a message. Sometimes I always say, whether it's your higher self, your inner knowing, or whether it's one of your guides, sometimes those messages will come through in whatever way is going to get your attention. But intuition tends to be pretty gentle. And if you do notice any doubt, any negativity about yourself or your ability to draw in intuitive messages, just start practicing reframing that. So I'm learning to connect or Um, I honor the quiet within me, so that'll lead me where I need to go. Something that's going to make sense to you about where you're at. I probably should mention we all have intuitive knowing. We all have intuitive knowing. Sometimes we have to go back to before the time when we were kids that we started to negate it or dismiss it, to recognize, oh yeah, I did have intuitive knowing. Release any fears that come up with, if I start to trust, or if I start to pay attention to, if I start to notice my intuition, maybe we think something bad will happen, a shift in a relationship, or force yourself to make choices that are different than choices that you've made in the past. And if this is even a struggle for you to sit still, to be seated or laying down, to be calm, to start to find that solitude, that inner solitude, then you can always pause this and come back. And without judgment and criticism. Robert sign behind me. An animal before he stirred. A mongoose. I'm gonna have to look up mongoose. It popped into my head. Each one of us has inner wisdom. Each one of us has intuitive knowing. We just want to begin to relax into that, to be open to that, to trust that with the quiet, with the silence, it's able to be revealed. Just feel that energy. just a little bit of Reiki. Seal it in with just a little bit of sound. Just a little bit of sound. It's gentle. I'm telling you, it's gentle. One of the things that I wanted to say, you can release the meditation or the Reiki. I just wanted to say a couple things before I close. If you're new to the practice of trusting your intuition or tapping into your intuition, if it feels like you're still reliant on external, somebody outside of you to give you guidance or direction, I'm going to give you two choices instead of another human, another person putting too much into somebody else's knowing and negating your knowing. Two practices that I started with, that I continue with, that have been very helpful. And I'm sure if you've worked with me, you know this. One is oracle cards. You can buy an oracle card deck, whatever feels, I don't know, of interest to you. If you like the images, if you like the wording, if you like the theme, whatever it is. And just start picking a card, just one card a day, and look at it, get some information about the image. What does it mean to you? What pops out at you? What stands out? Then read from the booklet. Each one has its own little booklet. Read what that card means. Again, kind of check in with, what does that mean to me? How does that apply? And then kind of like set it and forget it. Just see, how does that play out in my day? Is this something that I need to be aware of? Is this something that's going to help me on my path? There's all sorts of little things that we can do, questions that we can ask the oracle deck, but just start with one card. What do I need to know today? Or what is going to help me on my path to reconnecting to my intuition? Or how does my inner wisdom show up today? Whatever question you want to ask, and then see how it unfolds. And then later on, do a little bit of journaling, a little before and after, is good too. If you want to journal right after you pull the card, what does this mean to me? If you're thinking, I won't remember when I get back from work or wherever you're out to. And then when you come back, when you're settling in for the night, see, did I have any awareness? Did my intuition point me in any directions? Was this related to my journey with intuition or reconnecting back to my inner wisdom? Just kind of play around with that and see what comes up. That helps us, because even though it feels like it's external message, we actually are tapping into our intuition when we're pulling cards. We're pulling messages from them that are meaningful to us. That is your intuition. So it's just a different way of doing it, where it doesn't feel so much that we have to go within and find those messages. We have to mine for them and, dig them out or whatever. The other thing that I did that I found really helpful, and you probably heard me talk about frequently, is when you're out in nature, ask for a sign, ask for some sort of nudge, something that's going to help you on your path of connecting or reconnecting to your intuition, whether it's an animal or some other element in nature, and then see what comes up. Maybe it's the first bird you hear, or maybe it's the first animal that you see that you don't normally see. Who knows? You can create any rule you want, but you have something that you're kind of attending to in your awareness of, like, okay, I'm going to set that intention that this is going to help me in whatever way throughout my day. And then see, what does that mean? What does that bird mean? Or what does that plant mean? Or what does it mean when the breeze blows from this direction? Look that up if you have a book, or if you can go online and check that out, and then see, was that something that was helpful for me to know in that moment or later? Was that something that was coming? Was that a message from my inner knowing? Was that a message from my intuition? Or was I guided to go back within and to kind of check in with myself? So just two fun ways that I started out really learning how to trust my intuition. And I still do that to this day, especially when I'm feeling very stressed or overwhelmed and it feels too daunting to settle down, get quiet, and tap into my intuition. But I still use it. So it is they are both good strategies. So hopefully this was helpful. You learned a little bit about common blocks, especially within sort of dysfunctional or unhealthy relationships. And then we learned 3 ways that we could increase, reconnect, or just start to build upon our intuitive knowing. And then hopefully the Reiki helped. I focused on clearing out the third eye. Hopefully that was helpful. So I'm trying to do these lives every couple weeks with, they're like off weeks for my Soul Journey membership. Summer is we still have a few more weeks. We have one more full moon, one more new moon. You are welcome to join the Soul Journey membership for $0. And I'm serious. It's pay as you want, pay as you can. I know people are stressed. I know people are overwhelmed. $0. If that's what works with your budget, I am totally good with that. It is a group for women to kind of come together as a soul tribe to support each other. We're all at different places within our journey, but we're all working through the same topics, whatever level we're at. So if that's something that you're interested in, and then obviously we work with the lunations, we work with elements of nature, we kind of draw that stuff in too. So if that's something that you've been looking for, I put the link in the description box below. I also put an old blog I did. It was a few years ago about tapping into your intuition. So if you want more information, it's under there as well. Otherwise, I hope to see you in a few weeks when I go live again. All right, take care.